Happy summer. Welcome to summer. This yin yoga video is all about welcoming the warm season. And the warm season is related to our heart meridians. You could think of the chest area as well as the back of the heart, and then running down the different connective tissue arm lines into the fingers. And the parameridians is the small and the large intestine. So you could think of running up to your throat and then down towards your solar plexus area. And it'll be a pretty easy sequence. We're going to start with poses laying down on our abdomen, and then we'll kind of come up, take one pose upright, and spend the rest of class laying down. So it should be fairly easy going and accessible. What you'll need for props is a couple yoga blocks or thick books like dictionary, encyclopedia. You'll want a folded blanket. I've got mine up there. Something to kneel on, so you could have a second blanket, or maybe you have a cushy pad. Um, and I'm going to use the Gorgeous ball, which is the squishy airflow ball that I have over there. And if you don't have one of those, yoga block, yoga bolster, even a small throw pillow, or like one of those rectangular long throw pillows would be really nice. And we'll get started. So we're going to start laying down on our front side in baby crocodile for a few moments. And this is a heart opener. If you consider the fact that often when we're sitting or when we're working, we're rounding forward a little bit. So we have a little bit of flexion in our spine and the rounding in our shoulders. So the mat laying down will kind of help keep us from falling forward. And as we take the elbows wide and stack the palms, we're starting to work into the connective tissue of the arms and the hands. And then we'll go ahead and rest the head down. And I love to start with this baby croc pose. And what helps me make this transition from a busy day to these quieter movements of yin yoga is to just tune into my breath and imagine or think about all of the weight we're carrying today, whether it's emotional stress or physical stress, things that have happened or things that are coming up, and just let it melt into your mat on your exhales. There's no right or wrong pace of breath. There's no right or wrong way to breathe. So just let your body do what seems to be most natural today. Also know that all of these yoga poses are tools for us to get into the body. And there could be a tool or a pose that's just not right for you today. So if something feels not right, know that you have permission to abandon it, to modify, to try something else. And this coming to stillness isn't always an easy process. Sometimes it's like hitting a brick wall if we've been really energetic and multitasking all day. So if you have some turbulence, know that that's normal too. Just find compassion and forgiveness for yourself and come back gently to the breath. And very easily, slowly, you might lift your head so that you can look to the screen for a moment. We're going to come into our second pose, half frog. I'm going to bend my left knee up and out to the side. You can see that my ankle is coming to the ground. If that is happening to you too. You could scoot over to the right side of your mat, or you could tuck a blanket underneath your shin and knee and foot. So this is frog. And to come into twisting frog, we're going to thread our right arm underneath our left. So I'll lift up my chest slightly, thread my right arm under, palm facing up, and I could rest my head to some sort of prop, whether that's your left forearm, it could be the blanket, or it could be a yoga block. Sometimes there's a little bit of architecture or engineering and modifying the pose with our props to make sure that it's really supportive and that it's the right level of whatever our body needs for that day. So if it takes a few moments to try some things on, that's a-okay. And eventually we want to come to stillness. So I always say that err on the side of less sensation opposed to more. The more we can find this still moment in the pose will be better than any sort of depth of the pose, but for less time. And the temple could come down or the forehead could come down, whatever feels best. Whatever feels best is best for you now. And it doesn't matter what any book says or whatever teacher offers. Both legs can come long, and then we'll unthread the right arm, and we'll come into half frog on the other side. The right knee will come up and out, and I'll thread the left arm under. And side to side, expect the pose to differ and for there to be different props that you might need, either more support or less support. have about another minute and a half on this side. So if you can stay, stay. Always break if you need to take a break. But know that it's in these boring, still moments where the repair on our connective tissue is at its best. This is when the body is stimulated just so that the cells repair and hydrate, lengthen, and strengthen the connective tissue in our body. Of course, if we're feeling pain or numbness or tingling, that kind of overrides any benefit and we would want to take a break. Both legs will come long and you can unthread your left arm. So that twisting frog really helps to open the back of the shoulders and the back of the arm. And now we're going to work into a pose that will start to open the front of the chest a little bit more. It's a supported variation of Sphinx where our arms are going to extend back behind us and we'll have our blocks or our yoga props just so. Think like you're tucking them underneath your armpits like crutches. See, I'm kind of laying on them. One's in the front of my left shoulder, left arm. The other one is in the front of my right shoulder, right arm. I have them on the lowest height. And you can already feel from this, the press of the block acts as a massage into that connective tissue, that really dense connective tissue that gets short with everything we do with our hands in front of our body. And now I want to find something to support our head. You might just drop your forehead to the mat, or this is where you could use something as a little pillow for the forehead. And then the arms will extend back alongside us, palm face up or down. You might experiment with both. I have my hands up, but if that doesn't feel right for you, by all means do something else. I love these prone shapes where we can work with gravity and the support from our props to create really easeful ways to put our body into an advantageous position. So right now we have space for our heart to drop down, but we have props underneath our arms and the fronts of our shoulders, preventing them from rounding down past the chest. If this is already feeling like a lot of sensation, or you're just feeling like you want something more easeful, go ahead and stay as you are. Know that you can bring your blocks to a slightly higher height and experiment with that if you would like a little bit more sensation. And we'll lift our head from our prop and set our blocks aside to come into a deeper variation of Sphinx where we prop ourselves up onto our forearms to increase the back bend that we're taking and allow a gentle compression to come to the lower part of the spine. I have my forearms on the mat, but if you feel like you want to go deeper, you could bring your forearms onto blocks. And if you feel like this is too much and you want a little less, the arms could walk slightly forward, and that will lower the angle that your spine is making. This could be a great time to notice or check in if we've picked back up anything that we had been carrying today, that physical stress, mental problem solving, and then just let it melt back into the mat. And now you have the option to stay as you are, to come down if you need a break, or if you want to try going a little bit deeper. I'm going to show you a variation of this back bending called seal. A little bit different. The palms press down and the arms lift. And if I walk the hands further away from me, that will make it less intense for my back. If I bring my arms a little bit closer, that will make things more intense. If you notice that you're clenching in your glutes, that could be a sign from the body that the ankle is too much. I just noticed that myself. And if your hands are slipping a little bit, mine are slipping too, you could grip the edges of your mat. So lower or raise yourself so you have just the right amount of sensation. It's not too much. And then decide what you want to do with the head. You could keep it lifted, you could let it hang. I also like to kind of let my chest sink down slightly. That gives a nice extension into the chest. I get to feel a little bit stretch across there. And we're always looking for a balance of some sensation, but not so much that seconds feel like minutes or that the body is kind of clenching muscularly to protect, or that the breath is becoming short and fast. Those are all signs that we need to back off slightly. If you can back off first coming out completely, that can also be something you work on in the end. How do we stay and find the right level, opposed to kind of jumping in hot and then taking a break, coming back hot, taking a break. Where's the middle ground? when you're ready, very slowly lay the chest down, and you could come into baby crocodile for a few more breaths. As the spine returns to a position closer to neutral, you should feel some space between the vertebrae, and you can send some nice ballooning breath into that space. If you'd like to be still for a few more moments, you can, or windshield wiper the legs by bending the knees, lifting the feet, and letting them fall side to side. The legs will come long, and we'll take one more prone position. We're going to come into broken wing. So the left arm is going to come out into a goalpost shape. And the one thing that I want to point out is we can always change the angle that our elbow is making by bringing our hand a little bit more in or a little bit more out. And we can also change the angle of our shoulder by letting our elbow come forward or down. I say that because I want you to know that you can play with those two angles if you're feeling any pinching or discomfort. Everybody's body is slightly different, and so the angle that feels best will be different for you. So now that we have our left arm in a good spot, we're actually going to look over to the right, and the right palm will press down into the ground. And as I press my right palm down, I'll lean slightly to my left. And then I'm going to bend both of my knees up towards my right hand, and then something for my head to rest into. I'll use my blanket here. So you should feel a little opening into the chest, but you shouldn't feel any pinching in the shoulder. So again, play with that angle of your left arm till you find something that feels nice. You can also play with the angle of your knees too. You could bring your knees up a little higher towards your belly button or a little bit lower, almost like you're straightening your legs some. And for some folks in this pose, the right hand is still supportive, so you could keep that down on your mat, or you could work into the right arm a little bit by extending it up towards the ceiling, rotating the arm so that the thumb is closer to the feet opposed to the head. And then as you bend the elbow, the back of the hand can come to the back body somewhere. And we can open up that heart a little bit more just by being aware if our chin is tucking to our chest. We could create a little space there, opening up the front of the throat. right hand is behind your back. You can release it to the mat. I like to let both legs come straight and roll onto my belly before I release my left arm into the pose. And then to the second side we go. The right hand or the right arm comes into that goalpost shape. My left palm presses into the mat. As I roll a little bit to my right side, I pull my knees up towards my left hand, and then find some prop that will work for you underneath your head. Play with the angle of the right arm until you find something that's comfortable. You can keep the left hand down to the ground, or you can take the bind on the second side, reading the left arm up, rotating the thumb closer to the feet, and bringing the back of the hand to your back body. As you put your mind in your body, notice the sensations you're feeling and whether the pose is serving you. And always remember you can adjust, you can modify. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just that at this moment in time, the pose might not be serving you. If the left hand is behind your back, it can melt to the ground. Both legs might come long before you roll onto the abdomen and release the right arm. So we're going to push ourselves up through tabletop, but we also just worked the muscles and the connective tissue in the chest and the arms. So be really gentle and careful and slow as you press yourself up and come to kneeling. Our next pose is going to be child's pose, and I like a little bit more comfort for my knees. I'm going to take a blanket nice and wide to support them. And I'll take my knees wide. You might do that too if it feels okay. And the toes come to touch behind. And the seat might not come all the way down towards the heels. That's okay if there's space and there's hovering. If the hovering doesn't feel good, right, the gravity pull is just a bit too much, you can put a prop like a block or a bolster underneath your seat. Now in this variation of child's pose, we're going to come into a side bend. So as I walk my arms forward, both of my hands are also going to come over to the left. And I like to grip the edge of the mat, but you don't have to do that. And then find a comfortable place for your head to rest. And now both hands will come back through center and then over to the opposite side of your mat. And back to center we go. And we'll come up back through table, releasing our legs from that hip opener child's pose. And then we're going to get ready for our one upright seated pose today, which will be a straddle. And it can be really nice. Most of us have tight hips to create a little lift for our seat. So I recommend using a folded blanket, or if you have a pad or a pillow that you can sit up on. That way we bring our pelvis, kind of the bone structure in our hips. You can imagine it looks like a bowl of soup. And sometimes if we sit right on the ground, that bowl kind of tilts back, and it can be hard to move the spine from there. If we sit up, it brings our bowl to more of an upright, non-spilling position, and then we can work the spine better from there. So now that I'm on my seat, and you can notice I kind of switched orientation so that when we come into straddle and I take my legs out wide, the back of my heels are supported by my mat. So you could do that too, or maybe you're on carpet. So now we're going to take this upright variation of straddle and we're going to come into a little bit of a neck stretch here. So we'll take the right arm out, and just like in our broken wing, we're going to take the back of the hand to the lower back, and then we're going to let the left ear come to the left shoulder. And now you can stay exactly as you are, or you can bring a little side bend, leaning to the left. And as you do that, you might support yourself in that side bend, either with your right forearm pressing down into something, or you could use a prop in the crease of your left hip. And we'll release from the first side, bringing the torso up if you're side bending, bringing the head back to neutral if you're still in your neck stretch. And then to the other side we'll go. And for the first minute, just focusing on the neck. So the left arm will come out and the back of the hand comes to the lower back as my right ear comes to my right shoulder. And stay as you are or come into your right side bend, maybe supporting yourself with your right forearm or with a prop. Remember, all yin yoga poses should have just enough sensation where you can still breathe into the pose. If we're tensing away, we're not getting the benefit. Not to say you'll never have muscular engagement, but we're trying to soften into the area that we're working. Slowly release. And just notice the effect of the pose. The pose is so far. It's great in this busy life to just pause and feel things out. Our last few poses are going to be reclined. And so for maybe all of them, or at least for the first two, we're going to have something lay down on something behind our shoulder blades, the upper part of our shoulder blades. You could use a yoga block. You could use a rolled up towel or blanket. This would work really nice if I kind of made a little burrito here. You might have a bolster. I like a small little throw pillow or this ball, gorgeous ball would work. This actually isn't a cool, gorgeous ball, but the gold gym ball that I found that works just the same. Air filled, and I really like the press that this gives to the back of the shoulders, the back of the heart. You'll want something behind that possibly for the head. I like a block because it's customizable. Right, 3 different heights, or you can even remove it and let the head drop back and open up the throat. And you may want something props alongside your hips to support your knees if you're coming in a butterfly. So as I come to lay down, again, there's a prop behind the shoulders, prop behind the head. I like the arms into a T shape, but you could play with different variations. And when the upper body is set, the lower body will come into that butterfly. The knees will fall open and sometimes drop to support. And if you notice after a while that there's zero sensation, it's becoming more of a restorative pose, you might move the props a little bit further out so you can feel some sensation. If it's way too much sensation, the props could come in a little bit closer to your outer glutes to support you more. And I love to follow the kind of mental imagery of this heart line in our reclined supported butterfly. It's really wonderful to tap into the sensation of the pose across the chest and down the arms, and to know that that correlates with the energy path of our heart from an acupressure standpoint. One more time. Notice what you're holding. What can you let go of? Physical tension in the body, mental problems, things we're solving. They'll always be there, and it's good to find that rest, a moment of time to set them down and be present. If your legs are in butterfly, you can bring the knees closer to each other, and we'll come into the fish variation of a heart opener by letting our legs come long down the mat. They don't have to be together, they could be quite wide. Choose what distance between the feet feels right. And then try taking a different variation with the arms, where the hands come alongside you so that your thumbs can graze your outer hips. You could stay there. You could also walk your hands partially underneath your seat, maybe just that J shape of the pointer and the thumb, or further if it feels nice. And if you'd like to open up the chest and the throat slightly, you might let your head drop back some by lowering the prop under your head or removing it altogether. And yin, using props and gravity. And our body can be one of those props. Here, bringing the hands underneath the seat, we're using the weight of our body to open up the connective tissue in our palms that's stuck short on many of us who use computers or phones or even drive. garden, pretty much anything you do. We have our hands closed or wrapped around something, writing with a pen. You have your hands under your seat. Release them and you could let the hands flop open, the palms facing up. Maybe you open and close the hands a few times as you feel the energy rush down into the fingertips. For our next pose, we're going to take a twist, which can be really nice, heart supported. So keeping the object behind the heart. But we've already done two of those poses. And if you're feeling like you need a break, remove it, lay flat on your mat, and you can still get tons of benefit from the spinal twist. We'll rebend the knees. And as I step into the feet, I'm going to bring the hips a little bit over to the right. And you can let the knees fall left. It's all right if they're not stacking. If they're hovering from the ground, you could take a prop underneath them. To go a little deeper, you can let your bottom knee, your left knee, straighten some. You might even go a little bit deeper by wrapping the right leg up and over the left for the twisted root variation. Take whatever arm variation feels okay. Maybe that's a goalpost shape. Could be resting on the belly. Maybe you're staying with the T shape. As my spine settles into these twists, I notice how in the yin yoga pose, we're not immediately always in our deepest variation. As the connective tissue adapts to the pose, things could open and you might find more depth or less depth as time goes on. In the twist, I notice that I go a little bit deeper into the neck as my rest of my spine settles in. And if that's the case, you might be gazing up instead of to the left, or even deeper over to the right. And we'll bring our knees back to center, coming out of the first side of the twist. When you're ready for the second side, the hips go a little bit over to the left and the knees will fall right. You could take the two knee, the single knee, or maybe the left leg wraps up and over the right. Always feel free to take a different variation on the second side. And we'll start to come out of the twist. And if you're still with prop behind your back, you'll want to set that aside. It goes for something behind the head as well. And we're going to come into this half corpse shape where we're laying on our mat and the knees are bent and the feet are supported. Right, just pressing to the earth. And the hands could rest in this position, one hand to the abdomen, one hand to the heart. And as we come into this summer month, not only about the physical connective tissue area of the heart and the chest, but also coming into love and compassion. Many wise teachers say that first we have to cultivate that sense of love and compassion for ourselves. So I'll invite you to say out loud or say to yourself the following words from the loving kindness meditation. May I feel love and kindness. May I be well. May I be peaceful and at ease. May I be happy. One more time. May I feel love and kindness. May I be well. May I be peaceful and at ease. May I be happy. Release the hands to the ground, and before we come up to a seat, you might take some windshield wipers with the knees, letting them drop side to side. Eventually roll to one side into this fetal shape. Fetal shape in yoga, a reminder that each moment, each day, we can begin again. And when you're ready, you can push yourself up to a seat. Sit any way you like, sit nice and tall. And as you do, just notice the space that you created in your body and your mind for yourself. And then hopefully that radiates to everybody else. And bring our hands to heart center, Anjali Mudra with gratitude. Together we breathe in and out. Namaste. Thank you very much for spending this time and space with me. I hope you are having a wonderful beginning to summer, and take care.